happening in the world, and it's taking a toll on all our mental health. So this video is to serve as a gentle reminder on how to take care of your mental health during these times. It has not been easy for anyone. It's marking 1 year of a pandemic that has taken so many lives, coupled with the relentless attacks on civil rights across the country, which has made many people feel very depressed and unwell mentally. So what can we do to make sure that we're taking care of our mental health the best way possible? We need to be kind to ourselves. We need to allow ourselves to rest. You need to limit your news intake. You need to focus on what you can control. You need to engage in self-care, and you need to reach out for help when you need it. You're not alone through any of this. Being kind to yourself. You try to make an effort not to feel bad about experiencing negative emotions. We can get wrapped up into this loop of I'm not feeling well, I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not being perfect, or I'm not performing in the way that I need to. But it's okay to feel negative emotions, not to get sucked into them for your own well-being, but if you have a moment where you're not feeling well, allow it to process. When you allow yourself to notice those feelings without judging them as good or bad, you are choosing self-compassion, and you're actually addressing and healing the emotion itself rather than suppressing it and allowing it to come back 3 times stronger. So try to work on reframing your own thoughts. Reframing is a way of changing the way in which you look at something. It changes your experience of it, it changes your perspective. And in other words, reframing is a way to change the way you notice those negative thoughts and challenging them so you can engage into reframing them. You're challenging them more from an outsider perspective instead of going into it with a judgment or going into it with a stigma. So how does reframing work? Reframing is when you make an effort to catch yourself when you're slipping into that overly negative and stress-inducing mindset. So when you actually notice it, you notice that there's an onset of it coming on. And one thing you can do is become more mindful of your thoughts. So you're the observer, you're on that outside perspective, and when you catch a negative thought, you make note of it. You're like, okay, this happens when this happens, or I noticed that this got triggered when I was exposed to X, Y, or Z, or this got triggered from another memory, and so on and so on and so on. As you notice your negative thoughts too, an effective part of reframing involves examining the truth and accuracy, or lack thereof, of these thoughts. So they might not always be accurate, or sometimes it can be in some sort of cognitive distortion where it's going to be catastrophized, it's going to be black and white thinking, it's going to be filtering, it's going to take on so many shapes and forms. So you can ask, are the things I'm telling myself even true? What are some other ways to interpret the same set of events? What are the different angles you could look at it from? What would you say to a loved one if they're experiencing these thoughts? So you can even see it from another perspective of an outsider, as in you're outside of your thoughts. And you can also try to reframe it by putting yourself in the shoes of somebody outside of you who you know cares for you and what they would say to you, or what you would do if you were in the shoes of the outsider and the person that you cared about were going through these thought patterns. You limit your news intake. There's nothing healthy about consuming news 24/7. Set limits for yourself. It's setting boundaries, and in essence, for example, do not read news until you have been awake at least 1 hour a day. Allow yourself an hour of peace in the morning where it's just yourself and you adapt to that routine that you need to. And also do the same at night. Ensure that you give yourself at least an hour before nighttime where you do not consume any of this, so at least you don't go into your day already flooded with all this information, and typically negative information. Even though it may be truthful, it's heavy, or you don't go to bed with all of these things weighing on you and weighing on your conscious and manifesting in your dreams. So do not read any news or anything before bed and in the morning. At least give yourself those time periods and stick to that, just to set healthy boundaries and ensure that you limit your consumption just a little bit. A good way to consume news is to consider how you're feeling before watching and reading it as well. So not just limiting it, but actually asking yourself, am I in a good state of being right now to consume the news? Am I feeling well emotionally and mentally? Can I handle news right now? And if you can't, don't be like, oh, I'm gonna go into FOMO mode, I'm not gonna know anything that's going on, I'm being irresponsible. No, it's something that's a resource that's available for everybody, and you don't always have to consume it if you're not feeling up for it, if you're not feeling like you are okay on the inside. So if you are stressed out, if you're feeling anxious, you're feeling down, do not read or watch the news. Be mindful of how you're feeling ahead of consuming all of it. And of course, it's ideal that everyone is informed. We all want to be informed. We're in a world where information is so fast. It's at the fastest it's ever been, especially with social media. So You can be informed, but it's important to remember that the media we consume daily has a direct impact on our thinking, on our behavior, and our emotions. The goal is to find balance between feeling informed and educated about what's going on and feeling as if the news cycle is consuming your every thought and it's consuming your very essence and your well-being. It's okay to tune out of the news and tune into your mental health. Engage in self-care. Self-care describes a conscious act in order to promote our own physical, mental, and emotional health. Self-care can be many things. It can range from physical self-care, such as exercising, intellectual self-care, such as reading a book, social self-care, such as spending time with loved ones or engaging with a loved one. Occupational self-care can be taking a step back from work. Financial self-care can be treating yourself. Emotional self-care can be having a really good cry. So it's important to allow yourself the time for you. It can be even more specific. It can be taking a bath, it could be taking a walk, it could be taking a nap, or getting yourself that 8 hours of sleep that you really need to by cutting back an hour into your sleep, or watching something that you love that will get your mind off of a couple things just to help you recharge and not get burnt out from it all, because it can burn one out so much. It can be just anything that nourishes yourself, eating a great meal. It can be listening to your favorite music. It can be talking to people who nourish you. It's important to find out what it is that would care for you and engage in those self-care practices, because those self-care practices go in a long way so you're not always depleted and on an empty level. How do you allow yourself to rest? I know many of us out there have a stigma towards rest, and we think that rest equals being unproductive, but that's not the case. You need to allow yourself to rest in order to really look after your own well-being and your own mental health. So we live in a society that does place an emphasis on our level of productivity. It is extremely common that we push ourselves to the point of burning out. There's that word again. Burnout happens when you don't take your foot off the gas pedal. And this has been the case with many of those who have spent the last year working from home instead of in the office. Allowing ourselves to rest benefits both our physical and mental health. Rest is a basic human need. We must rest in order to function properly. Allow yourself time away from work, from your devices, or just set those boundaries. Like when you clock out and let yourself just be. You need to find a way from devices, from social media, if that's something that you find yourself going into that mind-numbing spiral where you're from one screen to the other and it's not great for you. And from any kind of responsibility for a brief period of time each day. Not to say you neglect things that are urgent, but you realize that there are things that don't necessarily always have to be right here, right now, 100% all the time. They can wait a little bit for you to rest a little bit, rejuvenate, and show up 100% rather than always trying to stretch yourself in multiple directions and thin yourself out to the point of burnout. In doing this, you're able to de-stress and reset your perspectives and strengthen your boundaries to ensure that your life gets balanced. Focus on what you can control, because when you focus on the things that are in your own control, it's a useful way to stay grounded. It's a useful way to know that you do have some sort of action on your side and some power on your side, especially when it feels like everything around us, everything that's going on in the world right now is out of our control and out of control in general. You need to utilize grounding techniques that will help bring you back into the now and help you stem from your individual level and what it is that you can do that branches out and does have a ripple effect eventually over time. But that doesn't cause you to stress that you can't stop everything and control everything and fix everything for everyone all the time. So what are some grounding techniques that you can do? First of all, grounding techniques create that space from these distressing feelings in nearly every situation, but they're especially helpful if you also just generally deal with anxiety. Some physical techniques can be putting your hands in water and focusing on the temperature. It may sound simple, it may sound like, how is this going to help me? But really, really allow yourself to just get into the activity. You need your 5 senses to usually be triggered in order to bring you into the moment, because your body naturally goes off of its senses. So when it notices a change, it's going to observe it, and it'll bring your mind out of that chatter, out of the whirlwind of everything, and into your body and into that tranquility and getting grounded. You can take a short walk and actually focus on your steps. You can listen to your surroundings and see what you hear and just take it all in without looking for things that you're going to take in. Just allowing things to be observed in that moment. Some mental techniques you can do is to play a memory game. You can try to figure out something that you want to pinpoint, like a song that you really liked when you were 7, something that will actually draw your mind into an activity that isn't depleting your well-being, but more so just trying to get those neural pathways and set up and light up different parts of your brain other than the ones that are getting triggered from stress. You can think in categories such as animals or lists of animals that you can think of, you can see. You can do those little mental exercises that can get your mind to do something else and use that energy for something else. And therefore, you'll stop thinking about the things that are causing you distress, and you're more into just a rational and logical and objective state of being. Use an anchoring phrase. So use a mantra, a prayer, whatever it is that you and your background define it as. Like, my name is X, Y, and Z, I'm this many years old, or I am grounded, I'm at peace, I am calm. Or if you have a specific prayer from any sort of religion that you do have that brings you tranquility, you can recite that to yourself, either out loud, quietly to yourself, or mindfully. Some soothing techniques you can do is to repeat kind, compassionate phrases to yourself. So again, those affirmations can be there, and you can genuinely talk to yourself in the mirror and say these kind, affirming things that really help you feel like you're comforting yourself the way you would a friend, or the way a friend would to you. You can list 3 favorite things in several categories. You can visualize your favorite place and your favorite person. You can find ways to just dream and create in your mind, or do research in your mind that doesn't lead to things that cause you distress. Those things can help a lot. Those are just a few examples. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but just a few examples to get you going and to guide you a little bit. A lot of the things that have been going on in this world, especially when it comes to triggering civil rights topics, it's important for us to ensure that we create safe spaces for those that feel extra distressed, not just as an outsider, but as an individual who these hate crimes are targeted towards, an individual whose community gets targeted. So I want to provide a couple mental health resources that I'm going to state out loud, and I will provide down in the comments below. So for the LGBTQIA+ mental health resources, there's a Trevor Project where you can text START to 678678. The National Center for Transgender Equality is transequality.org. The Association of Gay and Lesbian Psychiatrists will be aglp.org. LGBTQ Psychotherapists of Color Directory will be at abpsi.org/find-psychologists. Trans Lifeline is translifeline.org. The Q Card is qcardwproject.com. Now for Black mental health resources, there's Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective, known as BEAM, at beam.community. Black Mental Wellness is blackmentalwellness.com. Black Mental Health Alliance is blackmentalhealth.com. Black Men Heal will be blackmenheal.org. Melanin and Mental Health is melaninandmentalhealth.com. Therapy for Black Girls is therapyforblackgirls.com. Those that need substance use disorder resources, Alcoholics Anonymous can be reached at aa.org. Narcotics Anonymous can be na.org. Smart Recovery is smartrecovery.org. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration is samhsa.org. McLean Hospital's Addiction Treatment Center can be reached at mcleanhospital.org/addiction. Katy Mental Health Resource Center is katymentalhealth.ca. For those that are in the AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander community, the mental health resources for you are Asian Mental Health Collective, asianmhc.org. National Queer Asian Pacific Islander Alliance can be reached at nqapia.org. And for anyone who just generally needs mental health resources, you can call the crisis hotline at 800-273-8255. You can even text HOME 741-741. And the NAMI hotline can be reached at 800-950-6264. I hope this reminder and this guide has been helpful to anyone who needs it, especially during this time and everything that has been going on, all the injustices that have been happening, and on top of all the whole situation of us being a year into the pandemic. So whatever it is that you may need, I hope those resources are helpful. Again, I'm going to pin them in the comments below. And if you shall ever need anything, I am specialized and certified in mental health first aid, and you can always contact me. Take good care of yourself. I hope this has been helpful. Have a great mental health day. Thank you.